Have you ever felt your heart beating so fast it feels like it might burst out of your chest? That overwhelming sensation where your breath becomes shallow, your muscles tense, and your mind races with thoughts you can't seem to control? Now imagine experiencing that at 85 years old, when your body has already weathered decades of life's challenges. For many older adults, anxiety isn't just an occasional inconvenience. It's a daily companion that whispers constant worries about health, isolation, and mortality. What makes this particularly devastating is that many seniors were raised in generations where mental health wasn't discussed openly. They were taught to keep a stiff upper lip, not burden others with problems. They grew up hearing that anxiety was simply a weakness of character rather than a legitimate health concern. This silent suffering has led countless older adults to believe that overwhelming anxiety is just a normal part of aging, something to be endured rather than treated. The truth, which I discovered after 40 years in geriatric medicine, is that anxiety in older age is not inevitable, not just part of getting old, and certainly not something anyone should silently. Through decades of research and clinical practice, I've witnessed remarkable transformations in older adults who finally addressed their anxiety with appropriate techniques and support. The most heartbreaking aspect of anxiety in seniors is how often it goes unrecognized by family members and even healthcare providers. The signs are frequently misattributed to other conditions or simply dismissed as age-related changes. A racing heart becomes just another heart problem. Trouble sleeping becomes common for your age. Constant worry becomes understandable at your stage of life. This normalization of suffering has created a hidden epidemic among our older population, with many seniors believing that the overwhelming mental and physical symptoms they experience are simply what they must accept as they age. But today, I want to challenge that notion completely. At 85, I've not only studied anxiety professionally, but have experienced my own journey with it personally, and I can tell you with absolute certainty, feeling constantly anxious, fearful, and overwhelmed is not a normal part of aging. It is not something you must resign yourself to, and there are gentle, effective approaches that can transform your experience. I want to welcome you, truly welcome you, to this safe space we've created together. If you're watching this, perhaps you're one of the millions of older adults navigating the complex terrain of anxiety, or maybe you're a loved one seeking to better understand what someone important to you is experiencing. Either way, I'm deeply grateful that you've taken this step today. My name is Dr. Eleanor Richardson, and after 45 years as a geriatric psychiatrist and now at 85 years old myself, I understand both professionally and personally the unique challenges that anxiety presents in our later years. This channel isn't just another collection of generic health videos. It's a community built on respect, understanding, and practical wisdom for those of us in what I prefer to call our wisdom years. I created this space because I saw too many of my peers suffering silently, believing that the anxiety they experienced was simply an inevitable part of aging. Too many brilliant, vibrant individuals diminishing their lives because they didn't know that relief was possible. If you're feeling anxious, overwhelmed, or simply not yourself lately, I want you to know that you're not alone, you're not imagining, and most importantly, you're not beyond help. Age brings many changes, yes, but constant fear, worry, and physical distress are not mandatory components of growing older. Today's conversation is one I wish someone had shared with me decades ago, and it might challenge some beliefs you've held for a very long time about what's normal in aging. Before we dive deeper into today's topic, I want to clarify something important about the nature of what we'll be discussing. This video, like all content on this channel, is educational in nature. I'm sharing information based on decades of professional experience and personal insight, but this is not meant to replace individualized medical advice. Each person's situation is unique, and while the approaches we'll discuss have helped countless older adults find relief from anxiety, your particular circumstances might require personalized. That said, I believe strongly in the power of education. When we understand what's happening in our bodies and minds, we gain a crucial sense of control that anxiety often strips away. Knowledge itself can be therapeutic, especially when it helps us realize that what we're experiencing has a name, has known causes, and most importantly, has effective solutions. Throughout my career, I've observed that anxiety in older adults often goes untreated, not because solutions don't exist, but because people don't recognize their symptoms as anxiety or believe nothing can be done. Today's conversation aims to change that. We'll explore how anxiety manifests differently in older adults, why traditional approaches sometimes fall short, and specific techniques that have proven particularly effective for people in our age group. My goal isn't to diagnose or prescribe, but to equip you with information that empowers you to have more productive conversations with healthcare providers and make more informed decisions about your well-being. Let me share with you the key points we'll explore today. as I believe they'll completely transform how you understand anxiety in later life. First, we'll discuss how anxiety manifests uniquely in older adults. The symptoms often don't match the textbook descriptions you might read elsewhere, which is why so many seniors and even their doctors miss the signs. For instance, did you know that irritability, physical complaints, and excessive focus on physical health can actually be primary symptoms of anxiety in older adults, rather than just personality changes or hypochondria? Understanding these distinct manifestations is the first step toward recognition and relief. Second, we'll explore the surprising physical mechanisms that make older adults more vulnerable to anxiety, including changes in neurotransmitter systems that most doctors rarely discuss with their patients. Knowledge of these biological changes can be incredibly liberating, as it helps you understand that your anxiety isn't a character flaw or lack of fortitude. It's a natural biological response that can be addressed. Third, we'll examine the critical relationship between anxiety and physical health in older adults. The connection works both ways. Anxiety can worsen physical conditions like heart disease and arthritis, while these conditions can simultaneously trigger or intensify anxiety. This creates what I call the anxiety health spiral that so many seniors find themselves trapped in. Breaking this cycle requires addressing both the physical and psychological components simultaneously. Fourth, we'll delve into the often overlooked connection between medication side effects and anxiety symptoms in older adults. Many common medications prescribed to seniors can actually trigger or worsen anxiety, creating a frustrating situation where the very treatments meant to help your health might be contributing to your psychological distress. Knowing which medications can cause these effects is essential information every older adult should have. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, we'll cover 5 evidence-based approaches for managing anxiety that have been specifically validated in older populations. These aren't generic strategies. They're techniques that take into account the unique physical, cognitive, and emotional changes that occur with age, making them particularly effective for seniors seeking. Now, let's delve deeper into understanding how anxiety uniquely affects older adults, as this knowledge forms the foundation for everything else we'll discuss. Most resources on anxiety focus on how it presents in younger populations, but the manifestation can be dramatically different in older adults. For instance, while younger individuals with anxiety often report feeling anxious or worried, many seniors instead complain of physical symptoms, persistent digestive issues, unexplained pain, sleep disturbance, or fatigue. This physical presentation often leads both patients and doctors down a path of extensive medical testing, when the underlying issue might actually be anxiety. Another critical difference is that anxiety in older adults frequently centers around specific, age-related concerns rather than generalized worry. Fear of falling, concern about memory changes, worry about losing independence, or anxiety about becoming a burden to family members. These specific fears can dominate an older adult's thought patterns without them or their loved ones recognizing it as anxiety. The cognitive manifestations also differ. While younger individuals with anxiety might experience racing thoughts about a variety of concerns, older adults often develop repetitive thought patterns focused on a limited number of worries that they revisit constantly. This worry loop can be particularly exhausting and often leads to difficulty concentrating, decision-making problems, and what many mistake for early dementia symptoms. Sleep disturbances represent another distinctive feature of anxiety in seniors. While insomnia is common across all ages with anxiety, older adults typically experience a specific pattern, falling asleep relatively easily, but waking during the night with racing thoughts and an inability to return to sleep. This pattern is so common that many doctors simply attribute it to normal aging, rather than recognizing it as a treatable anxiety symptom. Perhaps most significantly, anxiety in older adults often manifests as behavioral changes that family members misinterpret. Increasing rigidity about routines, reluctance to try new things, withdrawal from social activities, irritability when plans change. These behaviors are frequently labeled as just getting older or becoming set in their ways, when they actually represent anxiety responses. Without understanding these unique manifestations, countless seniors suffer unnecessarily, believing their symptoms are either normal aging or untreatable. The truth is that once properly identified, anxiety in older adults responds remarkably well to appropriate intervention. I need to pause here and ask you something important. What time of day does anxiety usually hit you the hardest? You know, each person feels anxiety uniquely, and sharing this experience can be the first step to understanding it. I know you may have never talked about this with anyone. Maybe you think no one would understand, or that your feelings aren't important, but I want you to know that here, in this space, your experience matters deeply. Leave us a comment below completing the sentence. My anxiety usually appears when, Your courage in sharing might be exactly what another person needs to read today to feel less alone, and in upcoming videos, we'll address specifically those moments you share. This is a community of mutual support, where every word of yours is welcomed with respect and understanding. I've been practicing medicine for over 4 decades, and I can tell you that one of the most powerful healing forces I've witnessed isn't found in any prescription. It's the relief that comes from knowing you're not alone in your experience. When we name our anxieties and share them with others who understand, something remarkable happens. The power those anxieties hold over us often begins to diminish. So please, take that step today. Share your experience in the comments. Whether anxiety visits you in the quiet early morning hours, during family gatherings, or perhaps when health concerns arise, your story matters, and it might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today to begin their own journey toward peace. Remember that in this community, there's no judgment, only understanding and support for each person's unique experience with anxiety. Now let's explore some practical approaches that have proven particularly effective for managing anxiety in older adults. First, let's discuss breathing techniques specifically adapted for seniors. While many standard anxiety resources recommend deep breathing, the approach needs modification for older adults. Many seniors have reduced lung capacity or conditions like COPD that make traditional deep breathing exercises challenging or uncomfortable. Instead, I recommend what I call gentle, rhythmic breathing. Rather than forcing deep breaths, focus on creating a comfortable rhythm. Inhale normally through your nose for a count of 3, hold briefly for 1 count, then exhale through slightly pursed lips, as if cooling soup, for a count of 4. This gentle approach avoids the lightheadedness that sometimes accompanies deep breathing while still activating the parasympathetic nervous system, your body's natural relaxation response. Practice this for just 3 minutes, 3 times daily, and you'll likely notice significant benefits without any strain or discomfort. Another approach specifically beneficial for older adults is what I call sensory grounding. As we age, our sensory experiences often become less intense due to natural changes in our sensory organs. We can actually use this to our advantage in managing anxiety. When anxious feelings arise, deliberately engage your senses with slightly more intense stimuli than you might normally choose. Hold a piece of ice and focus on the sensation as it melts in your hand. Smell a strongly scented essential oil like peppermint or lavender. Listen to music with a pronounced rhythmic beat. These intensified sensory experiences can effectively interrupt anxious thought patterns and bring your awareness firmly back to the present moment. Movement-based approaches also deserve special mention for older adults. While intense exercise might be impractical for many seniors, gentle movement specifically designed to release muscle tension can dramatically reduce anxiety symptoms. One technique I recommend is what I call progressive movement release. Starting with your toes and moving upward through your body, gently tense each muscle group for 5 seconds, then consciously relax it while performing a small, deliberate movement of that body part. For example, after tensing and releasing your shoulders, gently roll them backward 3 times. This combination of tension release and movement helps address the physical component of anxiety that many older adults experience primarily as muscle tension or physical discomfort. Cognitive approaches need age-appropriate modification as well. Rather than complicated thought-challenging exercises, I've found that simple worry scheduling works remarkably well for older adults. Set aside a specific 15-minute period each day designated your worry time. During the day, when anxious thoughts arise, acknowledge them briefly, and then mentally assign them to your upcoming worry. During your scheduled worry time, sit with a notebook and write down each concern, allowing yourself to fully consider it. This technique works on 2 levels. It gives you permission to acknowledge valid concerns, rather than suppressing them, while also containing them to a specific time, rather than allowing them to dominate your entire day. Now let's explore specific aspects of anxiety that are particularly relevant to older adults but rarely discussed. One critical aspect is the relationship between anxiety and physical pain, which becomes increasingly relevant as we age. Research has demonstrated that anxiety and chronic pain share neural pathways in the brain, creating a bidirectional relationship where each can amplify the other. For many older adults, this creates a frustrating cycle. Physical discomfort triggers anxiety, which then increases pain perception, which further heightens anxiety. Breaking this cycle requires addressing both components simultaneously. Gentle physical approaches like warm water therapy, even simply soaking hands or feet in comfortably warm water, can reduce both pain and anxiety through multiple mechanisms. The warmth increases blood flow to affected areas, potentially reducing pain, while also triggering a parasympathetic nervous system response that naturally calms anxiety. Additionally, the sensory experience of warm water provides a grounding focus point for the mind, interrupting anxious thought patterns. Another overlooked aspect is the relationship between anxiety and sensory changes. As we age, many of us experience changes in vision, hearing, and other senses. These changes can contribute significantly to anxiety, often in ways we don't immediately recognize. For instance, age-related hearing loss, especially when it affects certain frequency ranges, can make it difficult to distinguish voices in group settings. This can lead to social anxiety, withdrawal from activities, and eventually isolation, all without the person necessarily connecting these feelings to hearing changes. Similarly, changes in visual acuity, particularly in low-light conditions, can create anxiety about evening activities or driving at night. Addressing these sensory changes directly, through appropriate hearing aids, proper lighting, or adapted techniques for managing in challenging sensory environments, can significantly reduce anxiety symptoms that might otherwise seem unrelated to sensory function. A third aspect particularly relevant for older adults is the relationship between anxiety and changes in social roles. Retirement, loss of a spouse, transitions in living situations, or shifting family dynamics all represent significant changes in how we define ourselves and our place in the world. These transitions naturally create uncertainty, and uncertainty is a primary trigger for anxiety. Creating new rituals and routines that acknowledge your current life stage, rather than attempting to maintain patterns from earlier life phases, can be remarkably effective in reducing this transition-related anxiety. Even simple practices like establishing a meaningful morning ritual that reflects your current priorities and values can provide an emotional anchor during times of significant life changes. Here's what many healthcare providers won't tell you about anxiety in later life, though it's perhaps the most important information of all. The most effective treatment approaches for older adults often differ significantly from standard protocol. This isn't just my opinion. It's supported by research specifically focused on anxiety treatment in older populations. While medication and cognitive behavioral therapy remain first-line treatments in general practice, the evidence suggests that for older adults, an integrated approach incorporating physical, cognitive, social, and spiritual elements yields the most profound and lasting results. This integrated approach begins with understanding that in older adults, the mind-body connection becomes increasingly prominent. Physical interventions, particularly gentle movement practices like Tai Chi, specific yoga adaptations, and rhythmic walking, often show comparable or better outcomes for anxiety reduction in seniors compared to medication alone. These movement practices work not just through physical mechanisms, but by creating what neuroscientists call embodied cognition, essentially using physical movement to directly influence thought patterns and emotional states. The research is quite compelling. Studies following older adults who engaged in Tai Chi twice weekly for 12 weeks showed a 43% reduction in anxiety symptoms compared to 21% in control groups receiving only standard care. What makes this finding particularly significant is that these benefits persisted during follow-up assessments 6 months later, suggesting that movement-based approaches create lasting neurological changes rather than just temporary symptom relief. Another critical component of effective anxiety management for older adults involves addressing the social dimension of anxiety. While younger adults might benefit from individually focused therapy, research indicates that for older populations, interventions that incorporate meaningful social connection show significantly enhanced outcomes. This doesn't necessarily mean traditional group therapy. Rather, it suggests that anxiety management for seniors works best when it includes opportunities for reciprocal social engagement, where the individual both receives support and provides value to others. Even simple interventions like caring for a plant or participating in intergenerational programs where seniors share wisdom or skills with younger people have shown remarkable anxiety-reducing effects. The neurological mechanism appears related to how social engagement activates reward pathways in the brain that can counteract anxiety. Let me share some additional information that complements what we've discussed so far, particularly regarding the physiological aspects of anxiety in older adults. One area that deserves special attention is the relationship between hydration, electrolyte balance, and anxiety symptoms. As we age, our sense of thirst diminishes, making chronic mild dehydration common among older adults. What many don't realize is that even slight dehydration can significantly impact the nervous system, potentially triggering or worsening anxiety symptoms. Research has shown that dehydration of just 1 to 2% of body weight, an amount that typically occurs before we even feel thirsty, can increase cortisol levels and create symptoms easily mistaken for anxiety: difficulty concentrating, fatigue, headache, and irritability. For older adults, especially those taking medications that may further affect fluid balance, maintaining proper hydration becomes an essential component of anxiety management. I recommend a simple approach, rather than focusing solely on drinking more water, which can be challenging for many seniors. Incorporate hydrating foods into your diet. Cucumbers, oranges, berries, and clear broths can significantly contribute to hydration status, while also providing essential nutrients. Additionally, understanding the timing of hydration matters. Small amounts of fluid consumed consistently throughout the day are more effectively utilized than large amounts consumed all at once. Another important complementary aspect is the role of inflammation in anxiety. Chronic low-grade inflammation increases with age and has been directly linked to anxiety symptoms through multiple pathways. Inflammatory cytokines can affect neurotransmitter function, alter brain region connectivity, and impact the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis that regulates stress responses. For older adults, addressing this inflammatory component can be a powerful adjunctive approach to anxiety management. Anti-inflammatory dietary patterns, particularly those rich in colorful vegetables, omega-3 fatty acids, and fermented foods, have shown promising results in reducing both inflammation markers and anxiety symptoms in older populations. Finally, it's important to understand the relationship between anxiety and cognitive function in aging. Chronic anxiety can affect cognitive performance through various mechanisms, including disrupting attention processes and consuming working memory. For many older adults, this creates a concerning situation where anxiety symptoms are misinterpreted as cognitive decline, creating further anxiety about memory, which then further impacts cognitive performance. Breaking this cycle often requires addressing the anxiety directly while also providing appropriate cognitive support strategy. If you identified with what we talked about today, and you're looking for natural ways to calm your mind and live with more peace, our channel is a safe space created especially for you. Each week, we share simple and effective techniques that have helped thousands of people recover their inner peace. We're together on this journey, and every step you take toward wellness matters. Click the subscribe button below and activate notifications to receive our videos as soon as they're published. Remember, you don't need to face anxiety alone, and small changes can make a big difference in your quality of life. I created this channel after witnessing too many of my peers struggling silently with anxiety, believing it was simply an inevitable part of aging. After 45 years as a geriatric psychiatrist, I know this isn't true. Anxiety may be common as we age, but it is not inevitable, and it is certainly not something you must endure without support. Each week, we explore different aspects of anxiety management specifically tailored to the unique needs and experiences of older adults, from gentle movement practices adapted for different mobility levels, to nutrition approaches that support brain health, from sleep strategies that work with, not against, the natural changes in sleep architecture that occur with aging to communication techniques for discussing mental health concerns with healthcare providers. This is not generic advice, but carefully curated information based on both scientific evidence and decades of clinical experience with older adults. By subscribing, you'll join a community of thousands of older adults who are discovering that their later years can be characterized by peace rather than persistent worry. You'll learn practical approaches that respect your life experience and the wisdom you've gained throughout your journey. Most importantly, you'll never again feel that you must face anxiety alone, or that relief is beyond your reach, simply because of your age. As we come to the close of our time together today, I'd like to ask for your help in extending this important conversation to others who might benefit. If you found value in what we've discussed, please consider sharing this video with someone in your life who might also need this information. Perhaps you have a friend who's mentioned feeling more anxious lately, or a family member who's withdrawn from activities they once enjoyed. By simply sharing this video, you could be offering them a first step toward understanding and relief. Additionally, if today's topic resonated with you, I'd be grateful if you'd leave a like on this video. It might seem like a small gesture, but it actually helps our content reach more people who could benefit from this information. The simple act of liking the video tells the platform that this is valuable content worth sharing with others. One of the most powerful aspects of our community is the wisdom and experience that each member brings. If you have personal insights about managing anxiety as an older adult, approaches that have worked for you, challenges you've overcome, or questions you're still exploring, I encourage you to share those thoughts in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what another community member needs to hear today. Remember that in sharing your journey, you're not just helping others, you're reinforcing your own progress and insights. There's remarkable power in articulating your experience and witnessing how it resonates with others who understand. By engaging with our community in these ways, you're helping to break the silence around mental health in older adults and creating space for authentic conversation about the challenges and possibilities of this life stage. Thank you for joining me today in this important conversation about anxiety and aging. I want you to leave our time together with one central thought. No matter your age, peace of mind is your birthright, not a luxury reserved for the young or the extraordinarily fortunate. The wisdom years bring their own unique challenges, Yes, but they also bring unparalleled opportunities for self-knowledge, perspective, and meaningful connection. The anxiety you may be experiencing is not a personal failing, a sign of weakness, or an inevitable companion to aging. Rather, it's a signal from your mind and body, one that deserves attention, understanding, and compassionate response. As you move through the coming days, I encourage you to observe your anxiety with new eyes, not as an enemy to be feared or a burden to be endured, but as information that can guide you toward greater well-being. Notice when it appears, what triggers it, and how your body responds. This awareness itself is the beginning of transformation. Remember that you carry within you remarkable resilience, developed through decades of navigating life's complexities. This same resilience that has carried you through previous challenges can be directed toward creating greater peace in your current experience. You are not starting from zero. You are building upon a lifetime of wisdom and strength. Until we meet again in our next video, I wish you moments of genuine peace, connections that nourish your spirit, and the gentle reminder that it's never too late to experience greater ease and joy in your daily life. This is Dr. Eleanor Richardson, wishing you well and looking forward to continuing our journey together. Be kind to yourself in the meantime. You've earned it.